The Animancer. The Animancer is a chat-based campaign set in the world of Aqualon. Our heroes are Konstantin Rajavadi, Adrian James Augustus Finkelroy, and Cassia Bazine Abzethos Shekla, who travel aboard the Temptress, a pirate ship pretending to be a tradesman cock, for various reasons. Since the earliest potential point of departure for one of them, Cassia, is around the Hooper chain, and they will travel by the Einan Island group, there will be plenty of stops along the way for the characters to experience fantastic adventures. And don't forget, somewhere an Animancer is up to no good, and Cassia, for one, has first-hand experiences with the terror these madmen can conjure. For those of you who don't know my setting of Aqualon yet, an Animancer is sort of a necromancer. It's the more scholarly term for the general school of magic. Now, in the following, I will provide you with the role play of the first scene that we played out on Thursday. And after that, you will see the video recording of our first conflict. So how we do the conflicts and the gameplay in general, I have a little camera mounted atop my table and place little aspect cards on the table. For you see, the Animancer is a Fate Core campaign. A wonderful system that is very heavy on roleplay and supporting roleplay. So please enjoy Scene 1, Aboard the Temptress. It was a relatively calm day, with a gentle, fresh breeze blowing across the deck of the Temptress from the southwest. Captain Keen looked about with a sense of satisfaction on her face. Those rubes at the rusty shore had made her run in circles at first, but had become more amenable to her trade proposals once she had put her foot down on their necks. She had a certain knack for aggressive negotiations, probably one of the few things her father had given her along the way. One may count the Temptress as one of these things as well, but the ship had hardly been given to her. It had been more of a hostile takeover, just like Daddy had taught her. Since their stop at the rusty shore, the Laughing Yaga was stored safely in a bolted crate by the mainmast, and they flew the flag of a Hooper chain tradesman cog. They had been able to make some good coin along the way, and when a target too tempting to pass up crossed their paths, well, one could not blame them for getting out the old black flag. Before leaving, two unusual passengers had found their way aboard. One, a strange woman with issues. Keen had taken pity on her and accepted her meager fare and the promise to really clean up the ship, in a literal sense. The other one, by Captain's request, a middle-aged sylph with some impressive credentials. The ship's magus had perished during a storm, blighted way too hard, heart failure and some such, and so getting a sylph or ferry from HJT had been imperative, and also another reason to hide the fact they were on a pirate ship. Keen's eyes lingered briefly on a distant mass of clouds blowing in with the breeze, then scanned the deck for the two passengers only to glimpse crewman Fink. Fink was leaning against the railing of the ship, his right sleeve pulled up to reveal a mass of springs and interlocking mechanisms that seemed to cover the bottom part of his arm, held in place by a collection of leather straps and rivets. His attention seemed to be more focused on the bizarre contraption than any of the other crewmen who wandered the deck. With a few final twists, he clenched his hand, and the mechanism seemed to contract beneath his sleeve, causing him to smile. "Knew I still had it." He patted his arm before adjusting his sleeve and putting his collection of small tools away. Cassia was grateful for the passage granted to her aboard the ship. She had managed to pass off as a blind woman, her ruse aided by a thin piece of cloth over the eyes. She had approached the captain seeking mercy and promising to work for the trip. Truth be told, she was quite earnest about this, and with what little money she had left, she hoped to at least make it a few more weeks before she would have to resort to thievery again. She had a knack for such things. It was almost as if her past had swallowed her up and spit her out to be inclined as such. But that wasn't going to happen if she could help it. This rare moment of thought was whisked away as her eyes crossed another horrid display of filth. A pile of clothes, atop some water-soaked wooden planks. Cassia sighed and set out to do her thing. Meanwhile, Constantine, clad in a dark blue robe, stood beside the helmsman and looked out toward the horizon, where clouds amassed into a dark wall, paying little mind to the others on the ship. The clouds seemed really unusual, and he wasn't sure whether they indicated a storm. Considering they were headed straight for them, they couldn't be that bad. But he'd better ask someone. Not the captain, though, not with such an uninformed question. Scanning the ship, Constantine spotted Fink close by and walked over to him. "Hey, Fink, do you think those clouds ahead indicate another storm? I suppose it could just be rain, but they look very peculiar indeed." Fink looked over his shoulder to the concerned Constantine before looking towards the bow of the ship. Placing the last tool, a small flathead screwdriver, into the case, he stood up straight as he pushed heavily against his back with a grunt and a groan. I guess that's worth checking out. Hold on." He reached down to his belt, grabbing onto a large, bulky metal cube that hung from a belt loop. I got just the thing for this. He held it forward towards the storm clouds in the distance, before waiting a few minutes for the wild shaking and clicking of the meters to settle. He pulled it back to himself and glanced at all the meters and gauges before turning to Constantine. "The multimeter says it's gonna be a big storm. Pretty mean one, too, if these gauges are right. But I'm sure the captain knows that, right?" The captain did not know that. She was somewhat distracted by the blind woman stumbling towards a pile of dish rags and being surprised by the feisty dog of crewman Finkelroy, Josephine. Apparently compelled to do some washing, the gears knew how she found the rags. Smell or sonar, Keen supposed. She had been utterly blindsided by the dog's amorous approach. It had jumped up to her out of the pile in which it had hidden itself and knocked her over. Keen was utterly enthralled by this. A less than moderate scream escaped Cassia's mouth, her surprise quickly turning to fear as she noticed the watchful eyes of Captain Elizabeth Keen. Cassia quickly sat back to her duties, trying to feign ignorance of the captain's gaze, as any blind woman would, but her attention kept returning towards the conversation of the crewmen and the ferry. Her mind wandered to the ever-darkening waters, and her heart quickened with the deep terror of memory. Briefly turning around to the captain, Constantine answered Fink. "I haven't informed her yet, and she seems to be quite occupied with your pet. I'll tell her." He walked back up to the helm and called out to the captain. "Captain Keen, there's a storm ahead. Fink's gadget measured a massive weather front, and it will be challenging for me to handle a tempest of that magnitude. Do you think we could avoid it?" "Avoid what?" she asked absent-mindedly, looking up to the southwest, their current heading. The clouds she had noticed earlier were now menacingly close, expanding far and wide to the left and right. "Ah, shit!" She fumbled for her money chain and pulled off a silver key. A steep sacrifice, but if Winklev claimed the ship now, all the golden keys in the world wouldn't do her any good. She kissed it and tossed it overboard to appease the evil god and keep away anything that went beyond the cruel fist of nature about to come down on the temptress. She knocked First Mate Lars away from the steering wheel and took over. "Move it, man!" and yelled down the deck. "Everybody, to their positions! Furl in the mainsail, ready the auxiliary sail to be furled in too! Move, you rats!" Then she turned back to Constantine. "Get to the bow, Mr. Magus. Do what you can to keep us afloat. We're going to need all the magic you can squeeze out. Shit!" There was no escaping this storm. They would have to sail right through. Fink ran across the deck, pushing past the scurvy crewman before pushing Cassia into the laundry pile and grabbing the small black dog with both arms. The dog, a small female mutt with a large smile and waggling tail, began licking Fink's face as he pushed downstairs to the crew quarters. He threw the door open as the last of the men had just run to the upper decks. He tossed the dog playfully into the room before snapping his fingers. "Sit, Zoe." The dog sat on the ground before raising a paw to shake his hand. "Good girl." He closed the door before running back to the deck to help with the sails. And that concluded the pure role-playing part, or the scene, and the conflict begins. In this conflict, the ship is pitted against the storm. Both have a number of stress boxes representing the remaining sturdiness of the ship before it sinks, and the amount of storm between the ship and clear waters. Every turn, the storm makes a fight attack against the ship's physique, and the ship is then represented by the player characters, which usually perform create an advantage actions to bolster the ship's chances against the storm's attacks. If the defense exceeds the attack of the storm takes stress, and this means that they progress further ahead. Now, instead of reading you the summary of this conflict, you can now actually watch us play this out as a group, showing you the whole recording of what happened before would have been a bit boring because there's a lot of downtime. We're doing a written role play, but the conflict is being played out quite live through the voice chat. So please enjoy that. And if you want to learn anything more about the world or the characters, you can find a link in the description. Enjoy.
What type of skill would it be to help to do the labor of manning the sails and the ship and such? Physique, athletics.
Let me check real quick.
Sounds like physique to me.
Or would that be pilot?
Unless you want to climb up, that's athletics.
If that case, well, it's physique. Then I'm good, man. I can, yeah.
Yeah, physique is like physical strength, pulling ropes or anything, and athletics would be climbing and that stuff.
Oh, then I can help with that. I have good non-combat physique.
So yeah, if you can like help pull ropes, sure, with physique. You can also help fasten or unfasten knots and stuff with athletics, and you can also do that with ride, because it just extends to any kind of vehicle and working with it. So just like basic ship operations would be ride.
I don't have ride, but I do have fair athletics and good physique when it comes to purely strength.
Good physique.
Mm-hmm.
Plus 3.
Yeah. I have a stunt that, for the sake of
right.
Yep. Where is it? Strength for determination. Use will instead of physique for any overcome rolls representing feats of strength.
Ping.
That's fair. Okay.
So I basically say, what rope do I pull? And then you just get super desperate and do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just you start pulling and it doesn't work because you have weak arms, but then you're like, no, I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna die here. And then you just get this adrenaline rush and it works.
Exactly. I'm 10 pounds muscle, 90 pounds adrenaline. That's exactly it.
Ping.
Yep.
All right. Fink ran across the deck, pushing past the scurvy crewman before pushing Cassia into the laundry pile and grabbing the small black dog in both arms. The dog, a small female mutt with a large smile and wagging tail, began licking Fink's face as he pushed downstairs to the crew quarters. He threw the door open as the last of the men had just ran to the upper decks. He tossed the dog playfully into the room before snapping his fingers. Sit, Zoe! The dog sat on the ground before raising a paw to shake his hand. Good girl. He closed the door before running back to the deck to help with the sails.
That's not what sit means.
No, but my dog actually does that because while we were training her to shake, we were also teaching her how to sit. So whenever she sits, she raises a paw.
Yes, that's quite amusing. So, with this, I'm going to set up our little special conflict. So I think you're going to love this. So, usually in a conflict, it's like a special type of scene where you and a bunch of enemies try to inflict physical or mental harm onto each other. And this is where the stress tracks come into play. If someone succeeds against you with one or more shifts, so one or more beyond your opposed defensive roll, they will inflict that many shifts onto you as mental or physical damage. And your stress boxes can sort of soak that damage. At the end of the conflict, they will clear again. And if any damage you took went beyond what your stress boxes could take, you have to use what they are called consequences to compensate, and these remain even after a conflict, and they remain as a sort of negative aspect that is tacked onto your character, and which can be healed over time. So this is not quite what we're going to do, because you see, this conflict is not between you and a bunch of enemies. There are two parties in this conflict, and one of these parties is the Temptress. So I am going to now add a number of stress boxes to the Temptress. He is going to get... She's going to get four stress boxes and 2 mild consequences. This is the damage the ship can soak before it sinks. The mild consequences will remain afterwards. And they can be a bit more than mild, but this is basically the amount of damage they can soak. And then the other combatant is going to be the Storm. So the Storm is also going to participate in this fight. The Storm has a number of skills. So I'm just going to say the Storm has a fight skill of +6.
Ouch.
Yes, quite. So this is the first skill I'm going to give it, and it might actually have another.
That's the serious ouch.
It might have another couple of skills.
Okay.
It also has a number of stress boxes, and it has
Huh.
5 stress boxes, and there are five stress boxes. So the ship has
So you
four stress boxes, and the storm has five stress boxes. And he also has 2 mild consequences.
That's interesting.
But no, yeah, actually, he doesn't have those. I wanted to do that slightly differently. So he has 5 stress boxes. Now, a little note: if this storm gets 1 point of damage, so 1 shift, he will still have to cross off 1 5 stress box, and that one will be used up. So there's no carryover. The same goes for the ship. Any damage it takes will take up 1 of those 4 stress boxes. So why are there 4 stress boxes and not 1 stress boxes? Well, these basically indicate that if the damage goes beyond 4, it's going to be bad. It will have to take a consequence to compensate, and if it doesn't have those, it'll just break, even if it has boxes left. Because you can only cross off 1 box each time you are attacked, and no more.
And 1 consequence.
And you can also augment it with 1 consequence. So, the storm and the ship are basically going to fight against each other. And I'm going to give the ship something to resist the storm. And I'll say that this is just its physique. This will represent its sturdiness. And I'm going to give it a physique of +3. So you may think now that, oh shit, this is bad because storm big and ship small, and bigger stats and stuff. But there is one deciding factor, and that deciding factor, of course, is you and the crew, because you can actually use your turns, or you can react and enhance the defensive roles of the ship. So basically, there will be 1 turn for the storm and 1 turn for the ship. And when the storm attacks the ship, you will actually each get 1 action to augment the defense of the ship in some way. Or no, actually, the storm is going to attack the ship, and each time the ship's turn happens, it's basically the turn of the crew. So you will be able to augment the ship. You can use skills to create aspects in the scene and to create advantages, which can then be utilized by the ship to defend itself. If you have an advantage with a free invoke, this free invoke can grant +2 to a roll, and you can also expend your own fate points to enhance the rolls of the ship. But you have to justify it somehow. Usually,
pleasure sailing with you all.
Yeah, so basically you could create an aspect that makes it easier to steer the ship or keep it safe, and then later, if you manage to make a full situational aspect with your create advantage action, you can then invoke that aspect with your own fate points. You don't have to invoke just aspects that are on your own character sheet. You can invoke any aspect that's on the field. You can also technically invoke the aspect of the ship, which is surly with a lot of character. Also, the storm can invoke that aspect because this storm has his own fate points. So the storm, just like any NPC group, will get the standard amount of fate points for this setting, which is 5. So you are looking at a very steep battle, my intrepid crewman. Are you ready?
Sure.
I'm ready as I'll ever be.
Let's do it.
Excellent, excellent.
Don't die. I'm telling that to myself because I am the squishiest.
So, I would say that we do it this way. We will play through this conflict in the voice chat, because I don't think there has to be a lot of intense acting, and I'll write a summary of what happened after the session is over. Is that all right for you?
Mhm.
Because if we like interrupt the conflict with writing our parts out, it's going to be very taxing, I think. It'll deflate the action. Okay, great. So we will actually start with the ship, because the storm hasn't quite arrived yet, and I think it would be unfortunate if the storm got in like a first strike before the ship could mount any defenses. That would be not good sportsmanship, and I'm such a good sportsman. So, getting back to the turn order, let's see. So
Well,
just for overview reasons, I'm going to now enforce the turn order I originally had, which will be Tosh, then Barbarossa, then Silencer. All right?
Okay, shouldn't it be notice based for conflict? Technically.
Well, technically, the conflict is not between you and something, but
Fair enough.
yeah,
I mean,
sure. Roll for notice, and we'll
also,
base
yeah,
the
I
turn order on
wanted to
that.
just add in that I've decided on more skills for my set, for my sheet.
Oh, you still had some open?
Yeah, I had 3 skills open.
Oh my!
I'm just gonna write those in the out of character chat real quick. Because I have set notice to +2 and empathy to +1.
Aha!
0.
And I still have 1 average open.
All right. Who said 0?
Me, Cassia.
All right.
Wow.
So
Wait.
We were rolling for notice.
Yep.
I got a 0.
0. What is you guys' respective notice bonus? Let me just check.
I have +1.
All right.
I have +2.
So Barbarossa comes before you in the turn order, and Konstantin is first.
So basically what you want to do anyway.
In that case, I'm going to give the storm also a turn order thingy. And the storm is just a storm, so it has +0. But let's see if it has like winds that you weren't anticipating in the front. It has plus, or actually, I'm going to give it the +4, but I'll combine your thingies. So it has +1, +5, and you guys have
3.
Oh yeah, right. You had 2 zeros. I'm sure you'll make it.
I mean, we still have a captain, right?
You still have a captain. So I'm going to introduce 2 aspects to this conflict. The first aspect is going to be...
The ship is sinking?
Not yet.
That's if we fail.
Oh.
Man the stations.
Man the stations is the first aspect of this scene. And the second one So we have also the aspect that is getting darker. So the storm is going to send in some headwinds to shake
So
the ship.
anything special about those exclamation marks?
No, that's just representative of the captain yelling.
Yeah, okay.
So the storm has a The storm has a +7 on its fight roll, and the ship with a physique of +3
Wow.
has
That's
a
going well.
has a +1, so that's not super great. There are currently 6 shifts, 2 more than the stress boxes can take. So, does anyone want to invoke Man the Stations to get around to this little snafu?
I'll invoke it. All
right. There was Cassia?
Yep.
All right, so
the bad woman.
There'll be one chip. Oh well, you're just like wildly using that adrenaline to furl those sails in, because shit, you really don't want to die in a storm. The last one was bad enough, you know.
Get out of the under the ship, you lazy bastards! We're gonna die.
Yeah, pretty much. So now it's you guys' turn. We'll start with Constantine. Mm-hmm. And you now have the opportunity to somehow protect the ship from the next onslaught of the storm, which, as you can see, is quite troublesome.
Yes,
one box is already gone. You have to get through all the 5 boxes of the storm to basically pass through it.
Well, how do I attack the storm?
You don't attack the storm, or well, not really. Yeah, you just create aspects to lessen it, maybe.
So, okay, sure.
Well, you can use creativity and your wind magic to create an advantage against the storm, or you can use lore and one of your 2 atlases to create an advantage against the storm with a directed spell.
That makes sense. Well, first I will charge to the bow, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I can do that.
I'm going to draw a rough layout of the ship, because in combat we usually have these things called zones. Yes. So let me just use different colors. Was a poor choice in secondary color.
So we basically have downstairs and upstairs.
Well, not quite.
And inside.
So just think of this as how the ship looks and how the zones are. basically set. So how this works is, this is the top side of the ship, and these are the bowels of the ship. You can enter the bowels through this hatch here, and each color represents one zone. So we have the back, the aft deck, which is the green zone, and the center and bow, the front, which is the red zone, and we have the bowels, which are the black zone. And in the bowels we also have cabins, which are an additional zone each. So,
Quick question.
yes.
Does this ship have a bilge?
What is that?
A bilge is normally kind of a deck below the hold that is
Yes.
it's supposed to fill with water and add weight to the bottom of the ship so it doesn't capsize.
Yes.
Okay.
So, in conflicts, when it's your turn, you can move up to one zone for free and then do an action. And you can also move more than one zone if you succeed on an athletics check.
All right. So me and Cassia are on the top deck, I assume. Where am I?
You and Cassia are on the top deck in the red zone, and Constantine is in the green zone. And he now wants to rush to the red zone, which he can do.
Yeah, so to the bow, because that's where I gotta be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, basically, I'm gonna go ahead and try to use my creativity to lessen the storm.
All
basically.
right.
That's all right with you. I'm attuned to wind magic currently, so.
All right, make a creativity check. And
Yes.
the difficulty is going to be...
Should be creating an advantage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the physique of the storm, which is 4.
Okay. Well, in any case, I'll make that roll real quick then.
So if you manage to get an exact 4, it will be a boost. If you get more than 4, it's an
aspect.
It's an
If I
aspect.
get 6, it's aspect with 2 invokes
Yes.
instead of 1. Well, he didn't like that.
You have to re-enter it, I think.
Fuck that. Haha!
7!
So, yeah.
Nice.
Constantine rushes to the front of the boat and starts chanting, Ars Magica Venti Linere. And does his magic thing. Very successfully, apparently. Yes, I've prepared spell names.
All right, you have created an aspect. Now, the first round is past, so man the stations is going away. But in its stead, there's now an aspect called Taking Charge of the Wind.
Oh. Regarding that, shouldn't both of their turns still have mend the stations?
No, that was just for the reaction.
Oh, okay.
For the reaction turn. And this little blue thingy,
because I did that.
it means that this aspect is attached to Constantine.
Oh man, you got all pluses, didn't you?
I did get all pluses, and I succeeded with style.
Yeah, he really took charge of that wind. Now you guys have like a real nice cushion against the storm. This is the storm was like starting to rage and build up, and he was like, "Wait a second, calm the fuck down," and then the storm calmed the fuck down. So now we got this going, and it's Fink's turn.
Think.
Oh, sorry.
What do you do during your turn?
Well, since I'm going to be helping with the sails, and I have all sorts of entrapments contraptions.
Contraptions.
I'm going to try and find something that will make it easier to turn the sails.
So the auxiliary sail, you mean? Because that hasn't been furled in yet.
Yeah.
Oh well, how could we best do this? So maybe you try to make some makeshift stabilizers, huh? Can you give me a tech check?
Will do.
And we'll set the difficulty at 3. That's the physique of the ship. So,
Okay, so 4 EF plus tech check. A 4.
all right. So you succeed, and you create a permanent aspect with 1 free invoke. Those 3 invokes are these boxes that you can cross off for +2 on anything that is related to it.
Okay.
So, what did I say? Makeshift
equipment.
Stabilizers is what you said.
Make shift stabilizers with 1 free invoke. And I'm going to attach a Finkeroy badge to that. It got the Finkeroy seal of approval. Good. Cassia, what do you do?
All right. So as the captain calls to, I rush down into the bowels of the ship. I'm searching for my belongings. As I pass, I hear Zoe barking up a storm and get a bit distracted. Then I don't get distracted, and I go and rush towards my belongings, where I grab my onyx lantern.
That's very nice.
That's all. I believe that's all of my actions.
So you're here in the red zone, and you go down into the black zone, and then you want to go into a third zone. Let me just pull up the movement rules real quick. I'm probably going to need an athletics check from you, so could you do that really quick?
Yeah. Oh no! That's a 0.
A 0.
Yeah, I got 3 -1s and a +1.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate.
That's painful.
It's dark down here, and you know, there's like this beam
There's also a
cracked
dog.
me in my head.
Right.
He hasn't invoked. Sorry, I didn't hear you. There's a cute dog yet, so
Oh,
I still get my turn. Thank you very much.
okay.
So I think I only moved 2 zones then.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just don't get an action.
From the first into the second zone, basically. 1 is free.
Yeah,
Okay,
1 is
then-
definitely free. 1 is definitely free.
Well, then
Free.
that's my turn.
There it is.
So it's getting dark. We've taken charge of the wind, and we have makeshift stabilizers.
Okay, so I have to set the difficulty for the overcome check. And
Is Captain Keen doing anything in this, or is she at the helm?
she is at the helm. She is trying to keep her as steady as she can. And she's barking orders. I'm...
You got this, Captain Keen. I believe in you.
So, you got a 0 on your athletics check, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to say it's not overly difficult to get to your cabin and get the stuff, so it's okay that you have the lantern and you're back in the bowels in the black zone.
Alrighty.
So in theory, you can move up to the red zone on your next turn and do something in addition to that. So now it's the turn of the storm. Yes, the storm. Let's see.
Very aggressive storm.
Let's see what this evil, menacing storm does. It attacks the ship. Oh boy, this is.
Can you start rolling lower?
Well, I'm sorry. I have this disease where when I play Fate Core, I roll really high for my villains, and this storm, it's just so evil, you know. It has a +8 on its fight check. Oh boy!
Now comes the -3 for the ship.
The Temptress sure is in quite a bit of distress, but I'm sure she'll hold. She'll hold, won't she? Oh, -1.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, it has 2, and the storm has 8. This is going to be tricky. Well, if you use all of your free invokes, you can actually negate this one attack. Are you going to... I'm so sorry. Are you going to do that?
Well,
Yes.
I think
Yes,
we do
we
that.
are.
So,
It's either that or just taking 1 and taking the 4.
yeah. But if you successfully defend,
Yes.
the storm is going to... well, it isn't actually going to take a consequence. You would have to get past that to give the storm.
That's how this works, huh?
Yes, exactly. You have to be higher than the storm. But in theory, you could use your free invokes and then spend a fate point.
Oh, makes sense.
So I will probably use a fate point to help this.
So first, there are makeshift stabilizers that make it easier to stabilize the ship. And the storm has calmed down at least a little bit because someone is taking charge of the wind. But it's just so much wind, you know. It still hits you like a ton of bricks. And now you're basically even with the storm. But if you can't just like get an extra bit of edge, you're probably not going to make a lot of headway through the storm. Like it's going to push you to like stay in place, which is not great because you want to get through, you know.
I'd like to reveal an aspect of the ship using a fate point.
You want to reveal an aspect of the ship?
Invoking that aspect would still cost another point, right?
Oh, that is true, but you can technically reveal an aspect of the ship using a fate point. Normally you would do that, I think, at the beginning of the conflict, but I would allow it here.
I'm just saying that it would cost another point to invoke it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending.
If that's the case, then maybe not.
Well, you can still spend a fate point to invoke your makeshift stabilizers again. You just can't use 2 fate points to invoke the same aspect, but the free invokes don't count into that.
Sure, let's do that. I invoke makeshift stabilizers.
So you really get all the mileage you can out of those makeshift stabilizers, and you're now at +10.
2. Yeah, +10 against +8.
Against +8. But, well, it is getting darker, you know, and it's just more and more difficult to see and use those stabilizers. So I think the storm is going to pull even to 10. He really doesn't want you to make any headway.
Well, that's a thing, but I think we can rely on Finch's stuff. So, in a pinch.
I see. So you're going to rely on Fink. I think that is a quite fitting use of that fate point. And you manage to press on a little bit. And you can see that the storm is now starting to fully engulf you. But in the most distant horizon, you see specks of light. Yes, just like 5 times more than this. And you'll be through.
Great.
Well, now it is time to replenish that skin of your teeth that you've been getting by on. So we'll start with Constantine. What do? You are now in the middle of the storm. Also, at the end of the storm's turn, the "it is getting darker" aspect morphs and turns into "it is almost pitch black."
That sucks.
Yes, you all now have difficulty seeing. Also, I am going to add an additional aspect, but I'll write it on the same card.
The storm's not nice.
That is what a storm does.
Oh, I thought it offered hugs and reassuring words.
No, you're thinking of Sven, the guy in the DMV office.
Oh.
So it is almost pitch black and the planks are wet. So it's starting to get slippery, which means moving is going to be more difficult now.
Makes sense. Okay.
I'm going to give this "the planks are wet" an attached overcome difficulty of 2, which usually you would overcome with an athletics check.
I'm not good at athletics. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd with tricks up my sleeves.
Oh. Well.
First off, I think I have that fairy atlas on me too, right?
You do.
So I would try to call out for someone to come over and use that thing alongside me.
You would require someone
Does that cost the action?
You can do that, but it would require someone who is capable of using spelling mandalas. I mean, like in theory, anyone, sure.
It's magic engines, technically.
Technically, yes, but there's like a difference between technically and in reality, because basically to use a magic engine, like system-wise, you would have to make a creativity check, and not everyone is good in that skill.
That's true.
And if they're not good, they will probably use too much soul power, maybe blight, and
how high is the check for something?
It really depends on the magic engine and what it's supposed to do.
Well,
but in your case, with your atlas, they would also have to somehow direct it in some way. So I feel like it would require at least probably a couple of hours of training sessions.
So never mind that. Okay, just an idea. Like, hey, I have that thing.
No, it's a good idea. Just a bit.
In that case, I'm gonna use the thing myself. And I'm gonna try to calm the waters ahead to make more headway.
Yes. So you're going to use the Atlas Incantamentorum Atramendi stunt.
Just my Atlas. So Constantine stands there and suddenly whips out a book from his cloak. And the pages just start turning wildly until he just slams down his hand on one page. And then I'm going to roll. With lore, if I'm not mistaken, because my stance allows me to do that.
Yes. So you try to calm the waters. The waters are part of the physique of the storm.
Mhm.
And your overcome roll will also go against the difficulty to use the magic engine, right?
Yes. So that's a 4.
The difficulty to use the magic engine, I'm gonna say that's a 3. But
Oh, that's what you meant. Sorry. Yes.
but one check fits all.
Yes. Okay. So then, let's see what we get here. That's nice. That's another 7. My dice are great right now.
Yeah, I can see that. Quite impressive. So, like
Someone got to counteract the storm.
So you got like one of these.
It's literally your job.
Yeah, that's what I do.
It's literally your job.
So I'm standing there until I slam my hand down on the book and it starts glowing.
So you had taking charge of the wind.
And calming the waters.
Mm-hmm. Calming the waters. Which is another 2 free invokes.
Yep.
Excellent.
Just put it right next to the taking charge of the wind thing. So something half below it. Something like that.
There.
Very similar, basically, so...
Exactly. So, now we got this going. What about Fink?
Well, after working on the makeshift stabilizers and seeing that these are kind of hard to work when you can't see anything,
Yeah.
I'm going to invoke the stunt made of trinkets and try and come up with a lantern of some kind.
So you can't actually invoke stunts because invoking is for aspects.
You can use them.
You can use stunts if they have like a usable component. In your case, it's just basically it says that if you want to do a job and you need tools, in your case, you don't need to consider getting those tools. You just have what you need.
All right. So would I be able to do that?
So you just have a lantern.
Sweet.
Well, that
Right?
that would be a bit over the top. No, what I'm thinking is, in this case, you're on a ship and there's bound to be lanterns. Maybe you have like a bullseye lantern. So you would have to retrieve that from somewhere.
Okay. So I retrieve a lantern from the decks. Or actually, your lanterns. Would it be easier to just start lighting some of the lanterns on the deck that aren't on? Because if it was day before,
Definitely, yeah. So there's like a couple of lanterns that you can light. They're not going to be great, but they are probably going to help the crewmen that are trying to fumble around. So not a bad idea, actually.
So yeah, I'm going to start trying to relight the lanterns around the ship.
So this would be an athletics check, and the difficulty would be 2 from the planks are wet.
I think I just discovered
that you're a bit athletic.
Yes.
So roll your athletics at +1, exactly.
Yes. I just discovered how athletic I am. It's not great.
Well, you were working on a ship, so got some training, at least.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 1.
Oh, man.
So you're having trouble lighting lanterns. So like you managed to light 1 or 2, but then you sort of slip and fall on your arse, and you have to like get up first, and it's difficult because it's so slippery.
All right.
So you don't manage to like create an aspect that there's now more lighting.
All right. Maybe next turn.
Mm-hmm. And what is Cassia going to do?
All right. So I got my lantern, and I go up, and I see that everything is dark.
Yes.
And so I take the lantern as it begins to glow with a bright light, tainted only slightly by a greenish tint.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am going to try to grip the shadows, and using the power given me by the Great Clockwork to turn the shadows into gray. Basically, and when people look into the shadows, they'll simply see what's in there, but in black and white. So
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, removing the darkness, but not.
So you're like creating a transparent shadow. But at the same time, your lantern is just gonna light up like a freaking huge beacon, because that's how the lantern works.
Yep.
So two birds, one stone, basically, is your idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need a stealth check from you, because that's how Shadow Society magic works.
Yep. I'm also going to use a point from my final stage spell blight to invoke a deceiver looking for redemption to give me a bonus on this.
Actually,
later.
You can actually just make your rolls with all your bonuses at the beginning, and once you know the outcome, you can then change it using fate points if you want. So
Okay.
you don't have to like pre-boost your stuff.
All right. Well, that's really good. That gets me up to a 7.
So you just have a 7 by rolling, right?
Yep. I got 6, 6, 6, and 4. If you can see that here.
Yep. I can.
Excellent. All right. So you got a 7. And I'm going to say that there's no need to invoke shit. So what you do, you turn all the shadows turn transparent in a way that basically, you know how dark side works in D&D. Everything all right?
Dude,
Say that again.
say that again.
You cut out.
You skipped out a
I'm-
few seconds.
I'm sorry. So do you guys know how dark sight works in dark vision works in D&D?
Yes.
You see everything as like sort of black and white, and that's basically like all the people on the ship now have basically dark sight, like, or reverse dark sight, because everywhere where it's dark they can just see like the grayish outlines of things. But there aren't a lot of dark spaces left, because Cassia is like holding up this beautiful onyx lantern that is just bright as fuck. So
As I raise it above my head, I call out the incantation. Do you have to do incantations? I don't even know.
for Shadow Society magic, not really, because it's like the spell work is in the lantern.
In that case, she just kind of mumbles to herself as she goes through her training.
Yeah, sure, that works fine. So there's now a lot of light, and what is happening is you basically destroy it was almost pitch black aspect. This can no longer be invoked by the storm, and it doesn't cause any trouble anymore. And I'm going to have you also create an advantage with 1 free invoke. And I'm going to call it. Let's see. I'll call it.
Let there be light.
And brightest day.
This is a long aspect, man.
In brightest day and blackest night, which is inspired by nothing trademarked.
Of course.
I like that Constantine is calming the waters. Cassia is turning the night to day, and Fink falls on his ass.
Well, you're just basically a seaman here, a sailor here. So what can you do?
Yeah, I am essentially the inventor. I don't have magic. Screw your magic. I'll make things.
Well, you did make the makeshift stabilizers, which helped a lot.
Help. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got this going, and now it's the storm's turn again. And the storm rages. It is not amused at all by what is going on here. There's some supernatural shit at work. And it's going to fight against the ship, but it only rolls a +0, so it has its base +6 of fight. And the ship this time rolls really high and defends all on its own with its own 6. So now is a good chance to really pull through.
The waters are so calmed, we get ahead a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say.
Yes.
So that would be one free invoke gone. Because we want to get ahead.
Yes. You can also, in theory, use all your free invokes and blow out its capacity to take stress. At which point, something different is going to happen. Well, you won't just teleport to the other side, but something is going to happen at that point.
That's true. That is an option.
I say we do it, because if we do that, I will invoke I will use my stunt, Blight and Shadow, and I will make him take one more consequence greater than he can.
He does not have consequences, if I can see that right. So, correctly. So
then he must either get one or be taken out of the conflict.
yes,
it's going to work a little bit different for the storm. Also, it's a bit. It goes a bit against the flavor of the stunt, if you know what I mean, because the idea is that you use your blight and your shadow magics to terrify people into taking more consequences.
Well, I don't know if Cassie is that scary to make Mother Nature want to back off. So
so whoa. just take my raindrops and leave. Oh Jesus.
Getting too big for my trauma.
Well,
Okay.
if we go over the 5, he technically also has to take a consequence or leave the conflict, so something is going to happen.
Something is going to happen if
and
you
it's not going to be bad for us, otherwise that would be really weird.
Something good is going to happen if you go past the 5. But if it is worth to expend 2 extra boxes, I'm not going to tell you.
I want to find out. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So,
in brightest day, in blackest night, and calming the waters is going to be blown out. And first of all, you're still blowing out one of the stress boxes. And what happens now is using all of this wind and water magic, or like the momentum of the wind magic and the following water magic, and the improved sailing capacities of all the sailors that can now just see shit again, which is great, allows you to find a small safe spot, like a sort of mini eye of the storm that you're now entering, and you can sort of make some headway while avoiding the more dangerous parts of the storm. So what's going to happen is you're going to get 2 turns now.
Woo! Fucking worth it.
so 3 turns?
You're going to get 1 turn now, and then you're going to get another turn, and then it's going to be the turn of the storm again.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This was the storm's turn.
Yes. Right.
All right, so Constantine, what are you going to do?
Well, apart from noticing a bright fucking light behind me, also.
And now it's really bright because you can also see the sun shining through the thinner cloud cover.
Okay. Well, I guess currently I couldn't really further. What would I do now?
The deck is still
wet.
wet.
Take a nap.
I could take a nap and recharge my soul. Which is in effect an option. I could indeed try to remove the planks are wet.
Yeah, or you could try to meditate and build an advantage for your next.
That's true.
For your next creativity or lore check, for which you would use will.
That makes sense.
But you could also try to make the planks dry again. But as soon as you're back in the storm, they're going to be wet again. So,
fair enough. They won't stay dry. That makes sense. Yeah. Or could I try to make headway already in the wind, basically? Trying to cleave away at the other side.
Oh, you want to like create a spearhead of wind?
More or less.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, just take more free invokes on taking charge of the winds, but
yes, you can do that.
Just so we don't have to take another aspect.
Well, I think there is a role-playing merit in creating more free invokes on the aspects you already have.
So, I think I would first try that. Although, a spearhead of air is something I probably have in my book, so...
That could still go into taking charge of the wind.
Yes. I just want to justify that I'm using lore.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to set the blight difficulty at 3.
Just this last time. So... That's a done deal. It's a 4.
Yes. That means you get 1 free invoke.
Okay. So basically preparing for re-entering.
Preparing for re-entry. Man the shuttle. So, Fink, it's your turn next.
Okay. So, I'm going to go down to the lower decks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to look for any points that I can see that may be weak spots.
Going to
see if I can reinforce them.
Well, I am going to need that 2 athletics check, so you can move freely.
Okay. 2 athletic checks?
No, an athletics check to with the difficulty of 2.
Okay, so...
Roll dice and hope that you don't get a 0 again.
Right?
God damn it.
Well, you could...
I got a 0.
Well, you could try to invoke an aspect to make it.
What aspect would I get?
Well, this may sound odd, but I feel like you could invoke I tend to bite off more than I can chew.
Okay.
Because you're not very athletic, and now you try to just like get shit done, but you're not quite up to it, but you power through. You know, it's you shouldn't just like have your trouble aspects be limited to being detrimental to just trouble. They can also be a source of strength. So sometimes you need to bite off more than you can chew, you know, and this is one of those cases.
Yes, I'll do that. I want to bite off more than I can chew and try and get downstairs to reinforce the ship.
So you match exactly the 2 of the planks are wet. So I'm going to say I like just in tone with the aspect you invoked, that you're going to have like a small cost attached to your success, and that cost is going to be that you just like pulled a ligament or something. Like now you have a little bit of foot pain.
Okay.
So basically stress or what are you saying?
Now I'm just gonna write like what are you gonna? It's like
Footloose.
Lost the foot, ain't coming back.
So you like recover from this fairly quickly, but it's potentially a bit annoying right now.
Slightly sprained ankle.
Yeah, like this.
All right.
But you manage to get below deck, and you can use tech to scan for weaknesses.
Will do.
Oh, welcome back.
Got a 5.
Ooh, that's pretty nice. So, the physique of the ship is 3, which I would again set as the difficulty, so you succeed with style. Which means the advantage you create will have 3 invokes on them. And I'm going to call it clever reinforcements. Is that nice? Does it scan?
Yes.
Clever reinforcements. So one thing I really love about the system, like just the concise titles of the aspects that people create. There's just so much character, so much latent roleplay involved in that. And I think it really builds a lot of atmosphere. You know what I mean?
So just making sure, I still have 3 fate points left, right?
You still have 3 left. Actually, there's two free invokes because you succeeded with style.
Okay.
So you
Just making
guys,
sure.
are already back in the money.
Yeah.
So I believe you get another turn now. This was the first one, right?
Oh no, Cassia still.
Oh
The
yeah,
weird
I
things.
am terribly sorry. Cassia, what do you do?
So Cassia looks out at the dark waters ahead, and she begins to think of a plan. However,
Yes.
it's a big plan.
Oh,
So she's going to take her turn and use her willpower to focus and prepare herself so that way she doesn't hurt herself with what she's about to do.
Interesting.
So what are you trying to focus? Are you trying to like prepare your? Yes.
Yeah, I'm about to try to use my magic in a very big affecting way.
All right. So I will call your boost or aspect just like maybe trance. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Then try to get into a trance. Now set the difficulty at 2.
Okay.
And the check would be will.
Alrighty. Well, that's a -2. So even with if I try to invoke something, I can't do it. So never mind.
What did you?
You have +3 on.
How much will do you have?
I have 3.
So you
So
are
you're
at 1.
+1.
Yeah.
Which means if you invoke something, you would be at 3 again, and the difficulty is 2. So at that point, you would create an aspect with a 3 invoke.
Okay.
But
then in that case, I shall do that.
But the aspect with the free invoke, basically, it's almost an even trade, I'm going to say. Because you have, of course, fate points that you can use for something else, which will
That's
also
true,
give you +2. The only advantage would be that you would have the permanent aspect of trance on the field for later. which
Can I
you
use
could
my
invoke.
spell? Can I use my spell blight for this? I get
Uh,
that might be worth it.
you can use your spell blight, but there's no reason as long as you have regular fate points to spend.
Okay. I fail.
Okay, so it's really your choice. You can also take the chance. As I said, it's more or less an even trade.
All right. Well, I did not manage to focus well enough, so I'll just have to try it raw.
Yeah. All right, I'm looking forward to that. And we can get to it right away because you get a free turn due to the extensive damage you magically dealt to that storm. So good job on that. Constantine, what do? You now re-enter the storm front.
I'm now re-entering the storm front.
Though a lessened storm front because of that spearhead of wind you shot ahead of the ship.
Right. Well, I guess I'll now be trying to control the re-entry further using creativity because I have to adapt to the storm basically. And that's all. I don't really have too many options.
All right. So try to go against the physique of the storm again, please.
Yes, with creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let's hope this works.
I mean, the only other thing I can think of doing next is down the hatches.
It works.
Very nice. So, since this is more than just a boost, I would consider making it another aspect. But I think we can... I don't have enough space to write this. I'll just write it on this one.
What are you calling it? Threading?
Threading the needle.
Oh, neat.
I thought you might enjoy it. So you're basically trying to get the ship slightly turned, always just in the most aerodynamically ideal positions by just like pushing it a bit.
That makes sense.
All right, Fink, what do you do?
Now, the only thing I can think of is since I'm still downstairs, if everyone left in such a big hurry, I'm going to make sure that the hatches are battened down.
Well, you could also get that bullseye lantern since you are downstairs now.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sure if you were you on deck when that whole lantern thing happened.
Yes, that happened before we got into the free.
So apparently, someone did have some really potent magical light on them. You weren't quite sure where it came from because you were so busy. So I guess you could batten down the hatches.
Okay.
And I would say we'll just add more invokes to clever reinforcements, if that's all right with you.
Okay. Sounds good.
So just make another tech check, please.
Yep.
And the difficulty is 3 again.
Seven.
Ooh.
Well, this is so far beyond that you just like you like intuitively find points that you can reinforce that turn the ship like super sturdy, and you'll probably have to like take it off later because maybe it'll cause problems with mobility or bulk or something. But right now the ship is like indestructible, so you're not just adding 2 but 3 3 invokes.
Oh,
Awesome.
Like this is basically like upgrading the physique of the ship temporarily. This is how you can think of this. So now it doesn't roll with +3 anymore. It rolls with like +5 because there's so many improvements that it can rely on.
yes.
I just see this little man jumping around in the bowels of a ship, slamming planks and everything everywhere, all the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, the ship is like dwarven craft, you know.
You're looking at me thinking I'm crazy, and then I kind of turned around and said, no, trust me, this is going to work.
And it absolutely does not look like it would, but it does. So, next is Cassia again. What is your terrifying plan? What are you going to do?
All right, so in a blossoming wave, in a powerful pulse, I want to send my my shadow magic out in front of the ship, and I want to spread this see-through darkness to the shadows beyond, so that the fairy can see the waves. And I want to imbue the winds with sparkles of what look like diamond dust, so he can clearly see the outlines of every gust of wind and of every shape and roil of the swells.
Amazing.
So this role will be to aid the fairy.
So, all right. I'm going to make you roll against the fight of the storm, because now you're just like literally fighting the storm with magic, which is a difficulty of 6.
Okay.
And I'm doing this because I expect you to have to spend fate points on this. Because usually using a lot of powerful magic involves spending fate points. So that is why I'm setting the difficulty so high.
Okay, with this. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's a total of -1, which brings me down to 3. So I'm going to use both of my spell blight, and I'm going to invoke Deceiver, looking for redemption, and a dark wrath slumbers within me. So as the storm pushes back, she reaches out for that.
So one moment, you don't have to use your spell blight. Like this is like the spell blight is like really for when you go past what you can do, which is what your fate points are for.
Yeah, sure. All right. I thought it was just poetic. I will go then. Sure, we'll spend 2 fate points.
Mm-hmm.
So as I push into the storm, trying to craft the magic, desperately trying to help in a way that I haven't done in so long, and as it pushes back, I grip this primal rage that slumbers just beneath the surface, and for the first time in a long time, I cut loose and put my full force of personality into it.
All right, so you are now at +7. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, you are at +7. And you basically create a situational aspect, and I'm going to call it reversal of darkness. And I am going to give 1 invoke to every character in the conflict on your side. But given that you permit it, I would also like to suggest that you take a moderate consequence from doing this. Because I sense like this, you had this wish to have it cost you something because you wanted to
Yes,
use
I did.
the spell blight thing. So it's not going to be a blight-related consequence, but it's going to be a somewhat ironic consequence connected to the spell blight, because you do this powerful shadow magic, which is almost like beyond what you could usually do. You really draw on your reserves, and your lantern grows immensely hot as this much light passes through it. And you take a moderate consequence, which is just called blinded. So you're like blinded moderately, which means it will take a while to restore your sight. Like one session. Like you're probably going to be blind throughout most of the next session, which is ironic because that is basically the character you were playing. So now you can really method act that out. Is that all right with you?
I'm down for that.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of mileage out of that. So, now it's finally the turn of the storm again, but oh boy, it does not look good for the storm, because you just like had this, do they call it box stop in Now, sadly, due to technical difficulties, the last part of this conflict was cut off from the video recording. It turns out I had set the encoding too mild, and it's sort of, the video filled up my entire C drive and was quite difficult to fix afterwards. To compensate, I'm going to read you the final part of the summary of the conflict, which will tell you what happened next. As they can see the end of the clouds in the distance, Constantine rallies himself to perform one more great feat of magic. With the power of his wind magic, the insight granted by Cassia, and the reinforcements of the ship, he attacks the storm directly, doing battle with nature itself. With great effort, but also with style, he pushes the cloud cover above apart, creating a wedge in the storm, releasing the ship much earlier than it would have been. The storm is still raging, but it is now behind them, and someone else's problem. The Temptress not only prevailing, but oddly coming out of the ordeal with severe reinforcements and makeshift stabilizers attached to her auxiliary sail. The real price of victory? A sprained ankle and a temporarily blinded passenger. Not bad for a day's work. So this is basically all that was missing from the video. In mechanical terms, game mechanical terms, Constantine used up a lot of the created advantages and the free invokes on them in an effort to sort of skip one of the stress boxes of the storm, and the storm sort of used its fate points to work against that as best it could. It even compelled Constantine's aspect that he has to do the extra flair, trying to trip him up. But in the end, he could prevail with the help of his intrepid colleagues. And now he actually will start the next session with an additional fate point, thanks to that, because compelling his aspect granted him a fate point for after the conflict. And that is basically all there was left to it. I hope you enjoyed this conflict. It was so much fun to play through this, and I hope we can continue on in this or a similar format. We already agreed that playing out the conflicts in voice chat is absolutely the best way to go about it, because it was just so much fun. And next week, the journey of these three strange companions will continue. Hello. I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. My name is Corey Bierenheit, and I'm the creator of the World of Aqualon, which I publish on WorldAnvil, a wonderful project for authors and world builders such as myself. I invest many, many hours each week creating articles and maps and videos and daily facts and even more content about this wonderful world, which I incepted about maybe 10 years ago or a little bit more. I hope you enjoy every last bit of it. And, well, commenting really does help. I also have a Patreon account where if you want to support me in that way, but don't underestimate how much it means to me if you participate in the creative process in any way. It means so much to me, in fact, that I created a diagram, which, well, role players like myself are quite notorious for. This one is a biological diagram showing what happens when you write a comment under one of my articles or videos. So this is the representation of your comment. It just sort of goes over here and causes a reaction in my brain, see, that's me, and releases a hormone called orthorone. Now, this powerful hormone causes me to write more content in the form of articles, videos such as this, and beautiful maps like the one you can see in the background. It's a work in progress, but I think it already looks pretty cool. And hopefully that will lead to even more comments, creating a horrifying feedback loop of orthorone streaming into my brain until I die of OCD. But it will be a very wild ride until then, so please take part in the creative process. See you next time. Bye.